Hi, I'm Håkan Dahlby. A couple of years ago, I made some interviews with famous Olympic champions, and I asked them around 30 to 40 different questions, and all the answers is more or less the same. I've interviewed Vincent Hancock, Peter Wilson, Kimberly Road, David Kostelecki, Vasily Mosin, etc. And it's mostly made for young shooters, but also for professional shooters who wants to become Olympic champions. I really hope you will enjoy this. Thank you very much. Bye.
So,
I'm assuming I'm looking at you just quickly before but you or the camera?
you're on now.
Huh?
You're on now.
I'm on now?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, we have Peter Wilson, gold medalist of London Olympics, here in front of me. Welcome.
Thank you, Håkan.
I have some Olympic questions I've asked to different persons, and you're one of them. The first question is, at what age did you start shooting? Was it your mum and dad that wanted you to start shooting?
Are you talking shooting full stop, or are you talking double trap?
Clay target.
Played target 12 years old, and then double trap 19 years old.
Okay. That's what it was. In mum and dad?
My mum and dad weren't really into shooting. My dad a little bit, so more by accident than anything else. I started shooting clays, when I was 12 as a result of dad's slight interest in shooting, and then I got the bug, and then at 19 I was shooting double trap as a result of an accident to my left shoulder, and it was more a mistake more than anything else. But it wasn't my dad who was interested in double trap. He was probably anti the idea of anything.
Okay. Were you a talented shooter, or how much talent do you think you need to become a champion, like really good shooter?
Oh, that's a good question. That's a really good question. I think it more depends on how much you want it. I don't think I'm the most talented. I've said in the past, I think a man called Richard Folds is one of the most talented shooters I've ever met. Someone who I always aspired to be like. He's a British Olympic gold medalist, 2000.
From Sydney.
From Sydney, exactly. And an amazing shot, an incredible talent. I didn't have the talent he had, so I had to work 500 times harder. So I realised from the word go that if I worked hard, I had an opportunity. I was talented, but I wasn't as talented as other people. So I think if you find a sport you really enjoy and you've got a gift for it, doesn't necessarily mean you have to be the most talented, as I wasn't, but I worked very, very, very hard. And day in, day out, I shot a lot of targets, as I know you did. And we all have to work, harder than what we think is humanly possible. And I was just lucky that was my day.
Good answer. Will a talented shooter become a better shooter than a shooter that practices more and loves shooting?
If I understand your question correctly, I think the less talented shooter that shoots more will always prevail over the more talented shooter that shoots less. As I said earlier, if you really, really, really want it, and if every day you train and you know why you're training, you have a greater chance of succeeding than the most talented shooter.
Good. How much did you practice back when you started, ammo-wise? How many days a week?
So when I first started shooting in 2006, I was 19, I was shooting sort of 500 to 1,000 a week, and that was if I was lucky. And then prior to 2012, I was shooting up to 1,500 a day, 7 days a week.
Okay. So, now you've answered my next question. How much do you practice today? Ammo, yeah. Oh, no, great. Do you practice differently in the beginning of the shooting season than in the middle of it?
When you say shooting season, you mean?
Yeah, like starting early season, like in January, February.
So I do believe in having a break, because I think you get stale if you're not careful. So my season started, I say a break, I mean I wasn't shooting every day through the winter, so I'd have a couple of weeks off, I might get the gun in my shoulder and shoot a little bit, but I wouldn't be shooting every day as I had been throughout. So I started on about the 1st to 2nd of February, and I would do 1 month of solid training, and that always hurt. That was always the painful period of my sort of season, because you forget lots of things, you make lots of mistakes, and as a result you come back to your best, and it can be painful. So from the 1st of Feb all the way through to World Championships, World Cup finals, sort of, middle of September, middle of October, that sort of thing, I would be training and then having a break. So,
how many rounds of ammo have you shot? I mean, in that year.
In 1 year?
Yeah, that season.
Well, because of travelling, travelling and having to have time off for, family, for personal engagements, etc. I think I shot close to about 150, 160,000. I shot the least I shot actually was prior to London. I bulk trained, what I call bulk training, right in the build up. But prior to that, we had a lot of media engagements, which really messed up my training. So you have to just make do with what you can and what you can't do. I think I probably shot at 90,000 in the build up to the Olympics, which I wasn't happy with. I would have preferred to have shot more. I believe in muscle memory, especially the old system. You could shoot a lot of targets and you really could get used to a rhythm, that sort of mechanical process of putting the gun in the shoulder, shooting the first target and shooting the second target. And although I wasn't fixated on timing, I think timing was incredibly important, and that came from shooting a lot of targets.
Great. That's a lot of ammunition. I mean, I know how much Ahmed shot, and you close.
Yeah, we shot a lot.
You're close. Okay, well, question: how much do you shoot before the first World Cup?
Before the first World Cup. So you're saying what?
Like in
April, that sort of time? Not enough normally. So the way it works in the UK, or certainly the way it used to work in the UK, you qualified the previous year into a squad of 6. That squad of 6 then fought for the opportunity to represent your country at 2 World Cups every year. So you would nominate 2 World Cups. So, for example, prior to the Olympics in 2011, I nominated Sydney and Maribor. I was allocated Conception in Chile and Maribor. So I went into Conception having shot probably only 15,000, which for me at the time wasn't enough, and I struggled certainly in the build-up to that competition. I really only got it together the day before. I remember you shot 149 in official training there, and that was a tough shoot, and I know the targets were moving a lot, like they are here in Maribor, and I struggled, really struggled there. And it only really came together the morning of the competition. I had shot so poorly in the build-up, so I would like to shoot more, so 25,000, but at that point it was just not feasible. So as I said, I like to take a break. I like to hunt, and the hunting season in the UK goes from October through to the end of Jan. So for me, it was always the right thing to start training double trap wise from 1st or 2nd of October onwards, which probably wasn't ideal for the first World Cup.
Okay, totally different question. As a top athlete, do you drink before a competition, like weekday, evening before a competition?
You mean alcohol?
Yes.
So 2 answers to that question. First answer is prior to London, from the 1st of January to the 2nd of August, I didn't have any alcohol at all. I had it in my head that alcohol stayed in your body for a lot longer than anyone admitted, and as a result, I just didn't want to risk having an alcoholic drink, and I just thought there was no point in running this to risk and to chance. So I wanted to be able to say that I'd done everything in my power to be the best I could on that day, and if it meant that you beat me, and I shake your hand and I congratulate you and I work harder next time, and if I beat you, then so be it. So you know what it was like. We were both neck and neck in the build up to the Olympics, and as was a lot of other guys. So I wanted to be able to say I'd done everything in my power. So that was that competition. Prior to that, no, I was having a drink, and I wasn't drinking probably 3 or 4 days before. But and I'm not a heavy drinker anyway, so I just enjoyed a social drink.
Okay. Physics training before and now. How much muscle and cardio training do you do?
Very little. I do a lot more now that I'm coaching than when I was actually shooting, and if I was doing any physical training, it was through the winter rather than through the summer.
Okay. Do you believe in mental training, like before and now? I mean, do you actually work with mental, like if you have a mental coach? Or
I used to when I was younger, when I was shooting sporting and FitAsk in the UK. But when I started working with Ahmed, who I know you're working with, that changed, and And I realised that I was very strong mentally anyway, and that I needed to have the right guide, the right coach, and the right mentor. And Ahmed was that for me. So we gelled very, very quickly, and I was able to use his knowledge to sort of come through. So oddly, as I got better, I stopped using a specific sports psychologist and just started to work with Ahmed. And Ahmed was instrumental, I think, in my sort of mental strength in the build-up to the Olympics.
Okay. Do you visualize?
What?
Like before your competition? You see, when you dry mount the gun, mount the guns, and you see all the shooters they lock their eyes and just shoot. Do you do that?
Sometimes not. My problem is that I'm a perfectionist, so I'm fixated on things. Once I get fixated on something, I'll do it and do it and do it and do it. And I've got OCD. I can't stop lining things up, and so.
I'm sorry, OC.
OCD.
And that means.
It. I have absolutely no idea what it means. All I know is it means that you have a sort of a condition that makes you want to do something the best you possibly can over and over again.
Okay.
I don't even know what it stands for. It's an acronym for something, which basically means you're slightly mad, I think.
Yeah.
So for me, I've always focused on things, and if I focus on something too much, it becomes more important than the goal. So if I was to say to you that I do it every competition, I would have to do it every competition. And so I try to leave my pre-shot routine as flexible as possible. Otherwise, I will allow it to affect me mentally when I walk onto the range. So I'm trying to be as flexible as I possibly can. So have I done it? Yes, I have done it. Do I do it for every competition? No, I don't.
So what I mean, if you have like a lucky underwear, do you always use it?
No.
You wash your underwear?
I wash my underwear.
Okay, good. So
unlike you. Clearly, you do not wash your underwear. That lucky pair of pants.
No. That wasn't the question. I'm sorry. Another question I got from a younger shooter: do you visualize yourself hitting all the targets before shooting or pulling the trigger?
So you know what it was like prior to the change in the rules. We had A scheme, B scheme, and C scheme. 25 pairs of each one. So we all knew exactly what we were about to shoot. So certainly, if I was at base camp preparing, where we lay our kit and prepare with Team GB, I would take a few minutes off to go and prepare for the round. And if that just meant muscle memory, a movement from A to B, etc., etc., I would do it. But as I said, I tried to remain flexible. I tried to not pin myself down to doing the same thing every time, because otherwise I became fixated on doing it. And if I didn't do it, I then felt like I would shoot poorly as a result. So I tried to leave myself as relaxed as I possibly could in the build-up to a round, and then I would use all of that sort of mental strength to focus on literally one pair at a time. It was 75 competitions for me. It was never about winning. I never focused on winning, oddly, the Olympics or any competition or setting, when I set the final world record in Tucson, it was just about shooting one pair at a time. I'm aware of what's going on around me, but it was just one pair at a time.
Good question there, and good answer. Very good answer. Okay, how much do you compete a year?
Okay, so I got a really strange answer for this one. I don't think many people would give you this answer. I believe every athlete has a tank of energy. So imagine you have a jug of energy, and if you use up that jug too quickly, it's very, very difficult to refill that jug. So that's why I take breaks. So that's why I take breaks over the winter. I shoot a lot of targets, I take a decent break, and in that break, you fill up your jug of energy. And I felt I always wanted to go to a competition desperate to do the best I could. Not win, not lose, just do the best I could and focus on each individual pair. So I never shot too many competitions. I found that I shot too many in the past, prior to 2008, and I suffered as a result. So I shot no more than, say, 6 or 8, certainly not more than 8 in the build-up to London, when I felt I got the best out of myself. So my tank was capable of shooting 8 competitions competitively. Beyond that, I felt like I would start to wane, my performance would start to dip. And it's funny enough, that's something I take through into my coaching now as well. I look at each individual. In this instance, I'm only coaching one young man called James Devon, and he would be different to me. So he may be able to shoot slightly more or slightly less. But rather strange answer, but I genuinely believe that people often over-compete because they're desperate to get competition experience. It's not always necessary.
Okay. Do you believe that competing is the best way to become a better shooter?
No.
Okay. Do you think that practice with better shooters will make you better?
So I always found that the best training I did was on my own. The best training for competition was done with others, and the best competition was done in competition. So there was 3 types of training, you could argue. One was training, and that means, to me, trying things. So I don't mind missing when I'm on my own. If I've got Håkan Dahlby standing next to me, I don't want to miss. I want to treat it as a competition. So if we were training together, then I would treat every round as a competition. And I would quite literally try and beat you on every single round. Every single double, every single round, I would try and beat whoever was standing next to me. But the minute I'm on my own, I'll then start to train. So I'll try and keep track of what I was doing wrong in my training competition, if you want to call it that. And then, depending on where I was struggling, I would then stand on that particular peg, or that line, or that scheme, etc., and I would train on it. And I would train, and I would train, and I would train, and I would train. And that just means shooting a lot of targets.
Okay. How do you prepare yourself before a competition?
Different every time, depending on where I am, what's going on. And so I say where I am, I mean where I am in the world. So if I'm transiting from one competition to another, how much time do I have prior to that competition? How much further east or west am I going? Jet lag, I think, plays quite a big part. Everyone's different. I suffer with jet lag, so I used to need at least 10 days if I was going, say, from London to New York or further, and likewise if I was going from London to Beijing. A little bit closer, maybe a 7-day stint. I found as I became more experienced, I was able to learn the ranges quicker, backgrounds, targets. So when I first started out, I needed more time, and as I got more competitive and slightly longer in the tooth, I needed less time. So it really depended on where I was in the world, how much time I had in the build-up to each competition, and obviously training depended on how much time I had in that country.
Okay. Do you prepare yourself different before the Olympics than a normal World Cup or World Championship competition?
I'd like to say no. I'd like to say I treated it like every other competition, but Håkan, as you know, it's the Olympics. There is no other competition like it in the world. I mean, we breed racehorses, so we breed horses to win at the highest level. And standing in a top hat and tails at Royal Ascot with a horse you've bred that's running in the most incredible race, in comparison to standing at the Olympic Games about to compete, that's the only closest analogy I can draw, and that's nowhere near. The Olympics is the Olympics. The buzz around the Olympics is unique. So I would like to say no, I treated it like every other competition, but how can you treat it like every other competition? There's so much going on. There's so many people, so much interesting things happening that I just tried to keep my head straight. I tried to focus on my theory of one pair at a time and take it as 75 competitions, but of course you are aware of what's going on. You are aware of the magnitude of this competition, and there's so many more people everywhere. So certainly in the build-up, I tried to keep it as similar to any other competition as possible, but it's not always possible. So I did my best, but it is unique. It is the Olympic Games. It's the best of the best coming together every 4 years, like Goliaths, to fight it out on the world stage. It's an amazing competition.
And for us, it's just one day.
One day.
One day.
And it's not even one day. You're talking
a couple of hours.
A few hours.
Yeah.
A handful of hours will determine whether your life changes or it doesn't. You can come first or you can come last.
Yeah.
And you just don't know. You just don't know.
Absolutely. How did you cope with the media before the Olympics or during the Olympics?
It was. I tried to play down my chances. I tried to play down the fact that I was going in at that time with world number 2, having set the final world record at the beginning of the year. I remember Josh Richmond was world number 1 at the time and shooting beautifully. I really thought he was in for a real chance. I thought you were in for a real chance. I missed the Europeans because I wasn't shooting very well, and I chose to step out and go back to Dubai and spend some time with Ahmed, and I saw you smashed it at the European Championships. So I knew it was going to be difficult. You were on form, Josh Richmond was on form, and I was shooting well. I was shooting well certainly a matter of weeks and a few months prior, but prior to that I'd been shooting quite poorly. So I knew it was going to be difficult, and obviously the media saying you're world number 2, Peter. You're going to win gold. I kept trying to say no, that wasn't going to happen. This is my first Olympics. This is highly unlikely. So I tried desperately to play down my chances, and as a result, I found the media attention subdued a little bit, and that made my life that little bit easier. So I can't say it was too pressurizing because I tried my best to play it down.
Good. Have you ever witnessed that other shooters want to pull you down to their level, like jealousy? Or are you so focused on your goal and success that you don't care about them? Like, fuck him.
I think it's a real treat to compete with people like yourself and others. I've read about you. I've read about other people on the world stage. These are the best shooters in the world, taking on one of the hardest disciplines. I would say the hardest discipline. I've shot all 3, and I think double trap is particularly difficult. It's not difficult to hit 1 pair, it's very, very difficult to hit 75 pairs. And to shoot the lot, I found impossible. I couldn't do it in competition. I came close, but not quite close enough. So to watch other people beat me was never easy, but I respected everyone, whoever they were, shape or size. So I thoroughly enjoyed the competition. I enjoyed the people. I'm what I would call a people person. And but having said all of that, I was still there to do my best. And I felt that on my day I was good enough to win any competition anywhere. So it would be stupid of me to say that I did it for the people and for double trap. I did it because I wanted to win. And even though I tried to subdue that and focus on 1 pair at a time, there was inevitably that nagging thought in the back of your head that said, you want this more than anything in the world. And I found that difficult to suppress. And if you get too carried away and too focused on what might happen or may happen, you miss. If you miss, you don't win. So again, on the old rules, if I shot more targets than you, I win. If you shot more targets than me, you win. So to me, it was about, from the very first pair to the very last pair, it was just it was an onslaught. It was a marathon, not necessarily a sprint.
Good. How did you become a strong shooter?
That's a long answer and a good question, and I would bore you for a very, very, very long time. A multitude of answers to that question, but I think especially having the right help at the right time. I was a decent shooter. I wasn't overly talented. I shot a lot of targets. I got to a standard that was European Junior Champion, and then I think I hit that sort of ceiling, that sort of glass ceiling. And I thought I could be better, but I wasn't entirely sure. And it was really when I found a decent coach, someone I would call the best coach in the world, I called Ahmed who unlocked my talent, my opportunity. And with his help, I was able to be the best I could be. And even then, I wasn't sure how good that was. So I think with the right help, the right guidance, and in that, it came with one man, and that was Ahmed Al Maktoum. But certainly having the support from your family, the support from Team GB, etc., it plays a part. I'm not necessarily saying it plays the most important part, because I placed that at Ahmed's feet. But everyone has a piece to the puzzle, and you have to want it. You have to want to get up every morning and shoot double trap, and that's not easy. That's a repetitive game. It's like painting a wall over and over and over and over and over and over, and then coming back the next day and painting that wall again, and again the next day, and again the next day. You know how hard that is. It's having that mental strength to come back every day, and you're only doing it because you want to be the best you can be. Some people may answer that question by saying they want to win gold. I answer that question by saying I want to be the best I can be. And if that is gold, if that is silver, if that is last, so be it. But it was going to be at the Olympics. That was the one thing I'm certain of. I was going to go to the Olympics. I just wasn't entirely sure whether I was going to come first or last. And that's why I didn't het up. I didn't get excited about it. I just said I want to be the best I can.
Excellent. You answered before, but again, I'm asking you, do you think practice makes perfect?
Absolutely. I love practice. I don't call it practice. I hate the word practice. I call it training.
Okay.
Practice to me is you're throwing away clays and cartridges. Training is when you really know what you're doing. You know, I practiced prior to 2009. I trained after 2009. And when I was practicing, I was just pulling the trigger. I didn't really know what I was doing. I was just shooting double trap over and over and over. When I was training, I did it for a reason. I stood on a peg, I worked on a specific thing, whether that was my timing or my technique. It could be a multitude of things. But I do believe that training makes perfect.
Excellent. On the day of the competition, at what time do you wake up?
Okay, so as explained earlier that I damaged my shoulder, so I have to do a whole heap of exercises, TheraBand exercises. So I had to wake up annoyingly earlier than I would always like. So I would try and have an hour and a half prior to having breakfast in that hour and a half prior to leaving, sorry. So I'd get up, I'd do my exercises, which generally take about 30 minutes, maybe 20 minutes if I can do them reasonably quickly, have a shower, and have some breakfast, brush my teeth and go. And I oddly never felt nervous until the point I brushed my teeth. So I was able to have a decent night's sleep, and that was something I learned over time. You know, as I became maybe a little bit more mature and I understood my technique and what I was capable of, I realised that by getting het up the night before was going to not help me in the slightest. So get a decent night's sleep, you wake up, and it was that moment where I brushed my teeth in the morning that I realised this is what it's all about.
Okay. Do you sleep well the night before the competition?
I do.
Good. How do you? What do you do to sleep good?
So if I told you that, I had to kill you. It's a difficult answer because I think everyone's individual. I think you have to work on what works for you, i.e. If you are an extrovert, talking to people, spending time with people is a good thing. If you are an introvert, getting some time alone, being in your hotel room, you know, possibly having a drink, it's not a bad thing. You know, this is the beauty of shooting. Everyone is individual. The sport is available to anyone and everyone, no matter what background, class, colour, etc. So for me, I found that I was an extrovert. I enjoyed spending time with other people. I enjoyed other people's company, and it was a real joy to meet other countries, other nations, other competitors, and have a laugh and try as best I could to get a decent night's sleep. I know it sounds crazy, but that little bit of extra money spent on a hotel makes a huge difference as well. When you're in a one-star hotel and you're looking through a hole in the roof and you're cold and pretty miserable, you're unlikely to get a decent night's sleep. When you spend that little bit of extra cash, and this is where, you know, British Shooting and my parents came in, you know, were able to allow me to stay in a nice hotel and enjoy a decent night's sleep. And of course you're nervous, there's no kidding around. The next day you're about to shoot a competition, whether it's a county championship or the Olympic Games. You're aware of what's going on, but for me, I was always aware that worrying about it was not going to help me. So I was able to block that out.
Okay. What do you eat for breakfast?
Can be anything from a banana and a coffee through to a full-blown scrambled eggs, bacon, cereal.
English breakfast.
Well, I try to stay away from that. I try to stay away from the idea of having a full English breakfast. Not necessarily always, you know, because I'd say again, prior to 2009, I was a bit of a pig, and I would eat burgers and full English breakfasts, and I realised again that made me lethargic, so it never quite got the best out of myself. So I cut out direct fat, or what I perceived as direct fat, and I tried my best to eat a little bit more healthily. So it can be anything from fruit to cereal to toast, etc. But if you're going to, for example, have toast in the morning, I would try and cut out butter. As I'm not saying that I'm some sort of 100 meters runner and I fixated on diet, but I just looked at tiny aspects of my diet and tried to improve on just a little bit.
Okay. Do you use, like, what do you drink, like water or energy drinks, like during competition?
Hold on, can we just pause it there for a second?
So, During competition, what do you drink? Like water or energy drinks?
I'm probably a classic advocate for Red Bull here because I like Red Bull, and I'm a caffeine addict. So I shoot, I would say, at a high heart rate. I like to be het up. To say that I'm an aggressive shot is probably the wrong way of putting it. I'm an energy shot. I believe in building yourself up to take, a pair of targets rather than trying to relax yourself. That's me. Whereas, as I said earlier, James is very, very different. So, so in the past, I've drunk Red Bull to build myself up if I need to, and equally drunk water if I need to relax. I take on as much water as I can, especially if you're abroad and it's hot. Whereas if I am slightly lethargic and I feel myself fading slightly, I'll drink Coke or Red Bull. But I think each and every one is individual again. So depending on how well you know yourself, you have to be so careful. If you go too far with that, you can really stuff yourself. So for me, I found that I shot better when I was slightly on the edge. But if I toppled over that, my timing went and everything went. So,
but it's like when it's like this hot, like it's here in Maribor. Do you drink any isotonic drinks?
No.
No. With salt and amino acids.
I'm always quite nervous of that. I've seen too many people get done for drugs by accident, or at least that's what they've stated, and not necessarily in shooting, but in other sports. And so when you start putting sachets into water and drinking that, for me it just never really sat well. I know that those sachets may well be perfectly fine, but just for me, I struggled, so I stuck with water.
Okay. At what time do you want to be at the range before competition starts?
A minimum of an hour to an hour and a half.
Okay. Are you nervous?
Yeah, I think it's always interesting actually. Funny enough, as I grew as a shooter, I began to be more aware of other people's nerves as well as my own. You obviously think you're the only one that's nervous. It's the most ridiculous thing in the world. In reality, everyone's nervous. Just people display it in different ways. So you'll know it as well as I will. Getting on the official transport, jumping on the bus, official training, everyone's chatting. Day before official training, everyone's chatting. Morning of competition, silence. Everyone's plugged in, and that was the first thing I realised. I thought was a mistake. I thought was a mistake at least. If you're used to chatting every morning, so every day you train, you chat, and then of course you come to pre-event training, you chat. Morning of competition, why change? Why on earth would you change everything? So either you change and adjust to your competition, or your training adjusts to competition. So one way or the other. Either you chat all the way through and you're relaxed, chatty, and extrovert, and on the morning of competition you're chatting with your coach or your mentor or your friend, or you're plugged in, listening to your music or playing on your phone. But whatever you do the same thing through. And so often I've seen people do one thing and then the morning of competition change. Why? Why would you do that? To me it's insane. We all talk about being robotic, being the same, being one after the other, and yet here we are as professional shooters changing the morning of the competition, what I would call a fundamental routine into the build up to your first round. So what did I do? I found that I was doing exactly the same as everyone else. I was chatting, and then of course morning of comp I was plugging in and I was listening to music and I wasn't talking to anyone. So I found that actually that worked for me. So I then worked back from that. So 2 or 3, 4, 5, 10 days before, I wouldn't talk to anyone in the morning of comp. I was nearly always desperate to talk to people because I liked talking to people. And I may well have something to share, or I hope they may have something to share with me. But I found that the best way to get myself in the best possible frame of mind was to actually plug into my music, relax, play on a game, take myself away from everyone, and just for those few hours in the build up to competition, prepare for that competition.
Good answer. If you get nervous, how do you cope with it? Then do you go into yourself like?
It's difficult to answer that because I think it was different for every competition. To give you an example, someone has said, you missed a pair at the Olympics, Peter, right at the end. You nearly let Håkan Dahlby in. Håkan nearly beat you. Did you know that? Were you nervous? You looked nervous. Fun enough, I wasn't nervous. I remember the first pass I shot 9 out of 10, and I wasn't nervous. I remember thinking I was nervous, but I wasn't terrified, put it that way. I was nervous, which keeps you on the edge, makes you alert, aware of what's going on around you. And then of course the second pass I missed again, and I'd missed erratically. The third pass I missed again, so I was 3 down, and I don't think you'd missed at that point. And I think other people had missed 1 or 2, but I was certainly missing more than others. And I was really pissed off, and I came to the 4th pass, and I hit them all. And on that 4th pass, clearly something had changed in people's minds, and they became maybe that little bit more aware of what's going on, and maybe that little bit more nervous. I don't know. They missed, I didn't, and I think at that point you may have only missed 1, the only one you missed. So I was aware of the buzzer going off, and as I came round back, I looked at the scoreboard, that sort of classic error. I liked looking at the scoreboard. I liked to know where I was. I liked to know what I was on. I was always aware of the score, so I looked, and I remember seeing, 1 Wilson P and 4, which dictated the 4 I had in hand of yourself, and then a score. Score was irrelevant. I just knew that I had 4 targets in hand, and I thought, job done. Finito. Here we go. I've won the Olympic Games at home. I can't believe it. I've worked for years for this. Everyone around me has worked for years and years and years, and I've done it. And I walked onto peg 1, and all I remember thinking was, this is incredible. I mean, I've done it. I've bloody done it. And it was as if I'm talking to you now, and I remember mounting the gun, and I was going, I've done it, Håkan. I can't believe I've done it. And I went boom, boom, and it was as if I wasn't even looking at the targets. And I missed the pair. Wow. Then I was nervous. There was no mistake. The targets were perfect. I missed. And I'll never forget Richie Bogner putting his gun up, then putting his gun down, and looking at me as if to say, do you want to do that again? I put the gun down, and I just ejected my cartridges and just went. I remember saying to myself, in my own mind, you absolute plonker. I knew why I missed, but of course that throws everything. You've gone from completely stable mentality, technically, to dumping a pair, which you and I know is not common. The top 6 in the competition in that day have shot extremely well to get there. They haven't missed many, let alone pairs. To get in the final at the Olympic Games, last 5 pairs, I miss a pair. I have 4 pairs left. Yeah, that's when you get hot. You get hot, you get nervous. I wish I can tell you how I felt, but I can't tell you how I overcame it. I can guess. I walked onto behind peg 2, and I was, very, very nervous. More nervous than I'd ever been in my life. And the noise, I remember there were some people cheering because I'd missed, some people gasping, some people cheering afterwards. And I walked onto peg 2, and I remember thinking, my God, I've just missed a pair at the Olympic Games. And that cut my lead to 2, because I knew that you were breathing down my neck now. And I knew I couldn't miss anymore. I didn't want to shoot off. I did not want to shoot off with you. For any money in the world, I did not want that to happen. So I knew I needed to hit the rest. And it was as if, as I walked on the peg, it was as if a goldfish bowl just landed on my head. And the noise became nothing, became sort of invisible to me. And obviously everyone was shooting, and it came back to my turn, I put my gun up. And I shoot left, right, and bang, bang, hit the pair. And it was like close to an out-of-body experience. The next 4 pairs, certainly the next 3 pairs, were entirely based on training. It was not me shooting.
So you went in the zone?
I don't know where I was. I've been in the zone. I shot 148. I shot 50 straight in the final. I shot 198 in Tucson. I was in the zone that day. That was my day. We've all had our day where we've shot big scores, and whatever you do, you pull the trigger and the clay breaks. But in this instance, it was just like robotic. It was, in my mind, entirely based on Ahmed Al-Maktoum punishing me, whipping me to train more and more and more. And so I shot that pair, and I wasn't really aware of what was going on, and there was lots of cheering, and I walked to peg 3, and I shot the pair, and I walked to peg 4, and shot the pair. And obviously I had 1 pair left. And you know what it's like, you go in first, you come out last. So as everyone shot, You have that ridiculous moment where they go bang bang, and then they look at the scoreboard, and then they look at you. They look at the scoreboard, look at you, as everyone's either willing you to miss or willing you to hit, Christ knows. I mean, in reality, everyone wants to win, and so you just want to hit the next pair. You just want to hit the next pair, and you don't care whether you die. You just don't care. You know what it's like. You just want to hit the next pair, and let the pressure be on the next person. And it was just as close to an out-of-body experience as I could possibly explain. I just put the gun up. I remember thinking for a fleeting second, shall I double barrel the first one? Shall I just plump both shells straight into the first clay? Because I knew I had to hit one to beat you, and I wasn't aware of you missing any more, so I thought, I've still got a 2-target lead, so I was plumbing both straight. And I thought, no, Ahmed will kill me. Straight up, he'll absolutely kill me. So I just said, you do what you do. You've done what you've done for years and years and years, and you do the same thing. And if you miss the pair, you miss the pair. If you hit the pair, you hit the pair. If you hit one, you miss one, etc. You just got to do what you got to do. And as I said, it was based entirely, to my mind, on training. And that's again why I pushed James to shoot a lot of targets, because in those moments, you thank the people that pushed you. In the build-up to it, I remember thinking, why am I shooting so much? 1,500 a day? You know, is it necessary? 1,000 a day? You know, a minimum of 500? You know, I never shot less than 500 a day. Is it absolutely necessary? Have I shot 300 straight? Is it necessary to shoot another 200? Is it necessary then to shoot another 1,000? And only in that moment did I say thank you. And I gave Ahmed a big hug and just thanked him. I said, thank you for killing me. Thank you for putting me through the grinder. So, how do I cope with nerves? I cope with nerves by shooting a lot of targets and relying on a very strong technique. And I can say that from experience, having been there and done it. But how do you cope when you first start out? You need a decent coach, you need a decent technique, and it's like building a house. You know, you have a very strong technique. You do the same thing over and over and over again, and you know exactly what you're doing. And so when you make a mistake, when you flinch or you jump or you make a boo-boo, you know exactly what you're doing and how to correct it. You don't need someone to stand behind you and say, how can you were over the top of that second one? You know where you were. You want to know how to correct it so you don't do it again. So once you've built that concrete reinforced base, and you've built your house, or the start of your house, you then need to work on that sort of next step. And that's, I think built on training.
Good. Fantastic. Next question. What do you do between the rounds? Do you speak to everybody, or do you want to be alone? You answered that question before. I mean, you're always... Now you're just listening to music, you said.
Yeah, I think I try not to kill myself, in the sense that if I want to speak to Håkan, if I see Håkan walking across the roadway between one camp and another, and I really want to ask you a question, I put my stuff down and I go and ask you that question. I hate thinking, I wish I'd done that. So I would go back to base camp, I may chuck a ball around with the guys, have a laugh, have a giggle, listen to some music. I try and taper that into a round. So if I knew I had an hour, if I had to score before, I have 45 minutes. If I haven't, I've got an hour. So I would come back, I put my gun down. As I said, I like to have my stuff in a specific way, in a specific area. So once I put my stuff down, I prepare for the next round, I fill my pockets with cartridges, I put my ski vest down, I then go and check the scoreboard. I like to know where I am. And if I need to push on, if I need to work harder, if I have a lead, how I maintain that lead. It's just then working on the next 25 pairs. But I like to look at the scoreboard. I always felt the worst case scenario was I don't look at the scoreboard, and someone comes up to me and says, wow, Peter, you're leading. You're on 100 out of 100. There's no one near you. That would destroy my brain. So I needed to know that. So if I was on 100 out of 100, right, I want a world record. I want 150 straight. Right, 25 pairs. Count me down, one at a time. Yeah, one pair. This next pair is the most important pair in my life. Once that's out of the way, the next pair is the most important pair in my life. And then just count it down from there. But if someone had told me that and I hadn't accepted it, was aware of it, it would mess with my head. So I go and have a look at the scoreboard, just see where I am. I wouldn't take too much from it. If I was at the bottom, I've got to work harder. If I was at the top, I've got to work hard to keep that lead. So there was never really any change in my mentality. It was just nice to know where I sat. I'd then go and, as I said, either chuck a ball around or listen to some music, watch a film, go and watch a bit of shooting. I love shooting, so watch other guys. I'm always learning, so I could learn off you, I could learn off someone else. What are you doing differently? What are you doing that I've not seen? How can I learn from you? Why do you stand in the way you stand? And you can learn it in competition as you can learn it in training. So always keep your eyes open.
Good. This is a good question. What do you think about when you shoot? The last thing, what are you thinking the last thing before you're calling the target? What do you think about then?
So you're talking about the minute you pick the gun up, putting it on your shoulder,
just before you call it.
Point. I absolutely want to destroy that target more than anything in the world. Like the single thing pulsing through my blood is the most important aspect of my technique, is to kill that target. There is nothing else more important in my life right now, in that specific moment.
So you think about performance?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. About technique, about getting my technique exactly right. So in the build up to that process, that routine, that shot, everything is exactly right. And if it's not, you put the gun down and start again. And as long as everything is in place and everything is right, in the old days we could still gun every single time. So of course you ambush the first target, move to the second target. And it was about making sure that your first target was correct to make sure it will give you the best possible chance to hit the second target.
So, talking about the new discipline, double trap with random system, what do you think that we should think about now?
Wow, I think it comes down to this whole idea of counting targets. This is so important. If you know what you've got next and you can reverse on every peg, what I mean reverse, if you're used to shooting left, right, being able to shoot middle, left, middle, right, or right, left, if you can do all of that and you can do it all comfortably and with confidence, huge advantage. So once you've got past your first 5 doubles and you're able to remember what you've had, you're able to reverse. I don't know, I just call it reversing. I don't necessarily think it's the right term, but that takes up a huge amount of mental energy, which has actually, I think, made the discipline slightly easier, because the old days you were focusing on 25 doubles, the same thing. You needed a very specific, very strong mentality. Now you're focusing on what the hell you've had and what therefore you might have, and as a result there's not much time for performance, maybe analysing what you've done or done right or wrong. So I spent, I've only shot one competition internationally with the new rules, and I spent the entire time trying to work out what the hell I'd had and what I was going to have next. And I wanted a still gun. The minute I had the opportunity to still gun, I was straight onto the target. I didn't care whether it was left, right, left, whatever. Just give me that first target, and then I can kill the second one. So for me, it was just taking my time to memorise what I'd had before and what I'm therefore going to have next.
Okay. Do you use triggers?
Do I?
Use triggers, have a checklist?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
My technique was based on checklists, working from my feet up. So depending on where I stood, trying to stand in the same place every single time, to placing the guns in the same point on the shoulder. And I had ways of doing that I could do everywhere in the world in the same possible way, but that really is a secret. But yeah, certainly that's important.
Yep. How do you focus?
How do you focus? I would say the same answer to my question earlier. You have a technique that you work to and you follow that checklist. Once you've gone through your technique and you're standing on the peg and you're watching the targets that are being shot by your competitors, you're already aware of what you've had and using that as some sort of mantra, nearly, to repeat what pairs you've had and what therefore you might have next. So I think the new discipline is slightly different, again, to the old one. The old one, there was much more space in your brain to think about everything. You could think about absolutely anything whilst you were shooting, and you're probably aware of that. You could equally imagine yourself on the podium for split seconds through the round, having shot 50, 49. Am I going to shoot 50? Am I going to shoot 48? Am I going to shoot 49? Will I be standing on the podium? And all of this whilst you're shooting. It's deadly. It's why I think the old system was so goddamn difficult. It wasn't the actual technical part that was so hard. It was the fact that you had so much time in which to just allow your brain to mull over what's happening. A bit like down the line, but extreme down the line. So, you may not have that in Sweden, but, this rotating trap in front of you, this methodical trap,
Yeah.
One target coming out, you have to hit it with your first shot. Of course, you get the chance to shoot it with your second, but you get points. So 3 points for a first barrel, 1 point for a second. You've got to kill it with your first barrel. It's an easy shot, but it's made difficult because you have all this time in which to consider what may or may not happen. Double trap's just that bit harder technically, and of course you have the same amount of time in which to consider what the hell is going on. Whereas the new discipline, you have this random selection of clays. Once you've passed the first pass, your brain is taken up with just memorising what you've had. So the focus was slightly different from the old to the new discipline.
Good. If you start to shoot bad, what do you do?
I get very pissed off. I'm not very good when it's going bad. I'm a fighter. I always want to do the best I can. So if I shoot 140 and I miss a final, I still feel like I've ground out that score. It's never easy shooting bad. When you've done all that training, all that preparation, all that work, and you come to the range and you shoot poorly, it happens to the best of us. I've shot a lot of competitions, as I'm sure you have too, and we've not won every one. So you don't win, you don't medal at every competition. So you have to try and grind out a score. For me, it was about an average, working on my average. I wanted to have a decent average at the end of the year. And if I had a decent average, I knew I was progressing. If I had a poor average, I knew that I wasn't progressing. So my average was always incredibly important to me. For example, in 2010, I shot a 42 out of 50. And I can remember it because it was the point that my brain said no, just no more. I shot 42 out of 50 on my first round at the European Championships in Kazan. I then backed it up with 2 49s. And I was lucky because the weather was horrific. It was very, very windy. And it meant that the targets bobbed up and down. And I was just so angry that I dropped straight to last place after the first round. And I slowly clawed my way back up. I wasn't bothered about coming first or last. I was bothered about my average. 342s was going to destroy my average that year. A couple of decent rounds and I was going to be back up there. So I suddenly found myself in the final, going in second, I think, into the European Championships. And I got a silver medal behind one of the Italian shooters. Wasn't you? It was
in Kazan?
Yeah.
I took a bronze medal in Kazan.
I think you did, yeah.
Yeah.
So I shot 140, and then I shot a 47 off the top of my head. Anyway, I came away with a medal that was totally unprecedented. I never thought for a second after my first round I was going to be walking away with a medal. I was only focused on my average. So if I shot poorly, it was about damage limitation. And if I shot well, it was about capitalising on that. So it just wasn't about winning. It wasn't about losing. It was about me. It was about me getting the best out of me. So if it was a bad day, it was never a terrible day. My old man has a wonderful way of putting it, and it was about never worrying about the top bar. So everyone says, my personal best is this, my personal best is that. He only ever worried about your personal worst. What's your personal worst score? Because if your personal worst is 100 out of 150, but your personal best is 150 out of 150, then you're a crap shot. If your personal worst was 140, and your personal best happened to be 145, you're a fantastic shot. That was his philosophy, and I followed that through. So I knew in 2012, I had a pretty clear idea what score I was going to shoot in the Olympics, because my average had risen, but my personal worst had risen. I wouldn't say my personal best was actually that much better. It was just my personal worst was a great deal higher than it had been before.
Okay. Do you ever have eye contact or seeking help with your coach or team leader while competing?
No.
Okay. When you shoot perfect, do you relax or do you stay focused on the whole round?
Focused.
Yeah.
Totally focused. Yeah. I'm not a very good shooter when I'm relaxed. And again, that's where I think I differ from someone like Richard Folds, who I mentioned earlier. One of the greatest shots I've shot with, had the privilege to shoot with. Very relaxed, very naturally gifted. Whereas I am the complete opposite. I am a more highly strung, I wouldn't say I'm more focused because I think Richard's incredibly well focused. He's able to focus on the job at hand and then walk away and come back, walk away and come back between pairs. Whereas I am, as I said, on the edge the entire time, and it worked for me.
Okay. I've asked it before, but again, have you ever been in the zone?
In the zone? A couple of times, yeah.
Yeah.
Funny enough, people said, sports psychologists, bad sports psychologists would say, it's about getting you in the zone. It's not about getting you in the zone. When you're in the zone worries about the zone. When you're in that moment, when you are just perfect, when everything is perfect, Christ, you could sneeze and pull the trigger and the clay breaks. But that only ever happened to me, if I shot 100 competitions in my life, probably it happened 5 times. So 95% of the time, I'm not in the zone. So that's what I'm worried about. I'm not worried about the zone. When I'm in the zone, I'm in the zone. Fantastic, brilliant, wonderful. But when I'm 95% of the time not in the zone, I need to work out, or I needed to work out, how to get the best out of myself. I wasn't in the zone in London. No way. I didn't shoot as well as I felt I could have shot. I thought 144, 145 was a decent score in London. It was not an easy range, as you know. A lot of wind, spinning in front of the ranges because of the net in front. So the targets bobbed, and you felt like you got robbed. You come to a target, you pull the trigger, and it would drop, or it would raise, and you just miss it. But I still felt like a 144, 145 would have been a really fair score. Because if you'd been in the zone, you'd have been robbed 4 or 5 times. And you would have shot everything else that was available to you. So you would have shot 145, 146. If someone had shot 146 in London on the 2nd of August, I'd have shaken them by the hand and said, you're an amazing shot. I happened to shoot 143, it was a decent score, but I wasn't in the zone. So it was worrying about the 95% of the time that you're not in the zone that mattered to me, not the 5% of the time that you were actually in the zone.
Good. What do you eat between the runs?
I nibble on all sorts of different things. Whatever's available, you know what it's like at different shooting grounds, you can get different things.
Like bread or fruit or...
Try and stay clear of bread. I find it hangs in my stomach. And again, everyone's different. I think as a coach now, I find it interesting how to get the best out of your student. You may eat differently to James may eat differently to Steve Scott. So you would try and pick what works for each individual. You do that well, obviously, in advance to any competition. For me, it was just things like nuts and fruit. I like bananas, slow release of energy, drinking lots of water, as I said. I would drink caffeine if I had to. I'd drink coffee if I felt I needed to, but only if I needed to. I wouldn't rely on it as a sort of 5 or 6 coffees before a round. It wasn't like that. It was just nibbling and drinking as I saw fit.
Okay. Are you more relaxed when you shoot the finals than during qualification rounds?
I love shooting finals. I always really enjoyed my finals. When I first started shooting finals, I was obviously terrified like everyone else. And as I began to shoot more finals in the UK as part of a sort of national team member, I began to relax into them. And I think it brings out the best in people. I think you are on edge. As a shooter, it's what you are desperate to excel in front of your competitors and competitors who are on a par with you. Obviously in the past, if you went into a final, you generally had a lead or you were being led by someone. And so there was either a mentality that said you've got 2 or 3 targets over second, or of course you were chasing someone who had 2 or 3 targets over you. So it was slightly different to now. Now you're going into a final, it's scores a level. Going into LA in 2013 with Glenn Eller having set a new world record, I thought it was hilarious. I remember walking around smiling, and I thought this was incredible. And I only thought it was incredible because someone who I respect as a fantastic shot, that is Glenn Eller, had shot a new world record, and of course he was gutted not to have a lead over myself and others. I was great. I shot 142, I think, 141, I can't remember. And that was the point. I can't remember, because it was irrelevant. As long as I got in the final, I was there to enjoy myself. I think now the pressure's slightly been turned up as people have started to shoot better and better scores in semi-finals and medal matches. But I've always enjoyed my finals, and I think each shooter has to find a way to enjoy it. Some people say, I'm terrified in the final. Everyone is nervous. Find a way that works for you. What do you most enjoy? And then work with it.
Good. Will you feel stronger as a shooter if you have been in an Olympic final before, because you know what's coming?
100%.
Yeah.
I think once you've been there and you've experienced it, you know what to expect. And that's why I think the likes of Josh Richmond, yourself, and a handful of others will be will be tough to beat, come Rio, because you guys know what it's like. You have already experienced it. Of course, you've been there before, and so you may well be able to answer that question better than myself. But certainly, having been there, experienced it, I would know exactly what to do now. Whereas before, I was slightly in the lap of the gods. I made plenty of mistakes in the build-up to London, and as I said, luckily it came off for me. But I wouldn't make those same mistakes again. And that basically is based around press, media, PR, etc. Staying well away from that, staying even more away from it than I was before. Just getting the job done, and then of course you can capitalise and do just about whatever you want afterwards. It's about getting the goddamn job done.
Good. Winning an Olympic medal, is it the biggest achievement you can do as an athlete? It's like one day every fourth year you have to be at your best.
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, you could argue, of course I'd say that because I won an Olympic medal, but it's a dream of any, that's being very presumptuous, but I believe it's a dream of any kid, anyone on this planet, to be the best of the best of the best. And the Olympics is that is exactly what the Olympics is about, being the best in this, on this planet. How can anyone ask for any more than that? And then beyond that, it's about pride, it's about respect, it's about respect among competitors, and I think I feel very lucky to have been at my best on 2nd of August 2012, because I came up against someone who was a fantastic competitor, and it could have gone one or two ways. You just don't know, and so it's a great competition. And then of course you have to wait 4 years to get the opportunity again to rectify it if you came last, or to capitalise on it if you came first. So I think it's one of the greatest spectacles in world sport, competing at the Olympics in any sport, no matter what it is. But of course, for shooting, it is the biggest competition we come up against. And we are, I think, other people may disagree, in reality, only ever preparing for that. The 4 years in the build-up to the Olympics are a preparation for it. The World Cups, the World Championships, the Europeans, they're all stepping stones to the ultimate goal. And I'm sure if you asked anyone who has won multiple World Cups, Europeans, World Championships, they would always trade all their medals for an Olympic gold. So Olympic medal, it is the pinnacle.
Why is it that media think that winning an Olympic medal in shooting isn't worth as much as doing it in the track and field?
I never really found that. Certainly, I have heard that in the past, but I certainly never let it affect me. I knew getting into this sport, I was never going to be famous. Certainly as famous as a 100 metres runner who won gold. In this instance, Usain Bolt, the man's a legend, and deservedly so. He's a fantastic athlete, fantastic ambassador for the Olympics, for the 100 metres, for athletics. So I can't really answer a question, because I think that I came into this with my eyes wide open. I only ever wanted to be the best I could be in my sport of double trap, in our sport of double trap. It was to be the Olympic champion. So I'm just very lucky to be that person. And I know in 2016 I won't be that person anymore. I'll be old hat, but it would have been a real privilege. So no, I can't really answer your question directly.
Okay. To celebrate the medal, what do you drink? Champagne?
Lots of it. I drink anything and everything. As I said, I didn't drink anything from the 1st of Jan all the way through to the 2nd of August. So for me, it was a sniff of champagne and I was gone. I was anybody's.
I had a lot of champagne.
I bet you did. I had a lot of champagne as well.
Okay. What kind of gun do you shoot with?
I shoot with a Perazzi MX 2005, and I use a nil griff anatomical stock to combine it.
What kind of ammo are you using?
At the Olympics I was using an RC4 Champion Excellence, 7.5 in the top barrel, and then an RC4 Champion Excellence, 9.5 in the bottom barrel.
What kind of specs do you use?
You mean glasses?
Glasses, yeah.
Funny enough, I'm not an advocate for glasses. If I possibly can, I won't wear glasses. But if I am forced to wear glasses, or it is so bright that I have to, it'll be Pillar, which obviously was once high-def specs.
Okay. How do you find sponsors?
How do I find them?
Or do they find you?
I think it's very, very different having won a medal at the Olympics. Prior to that, it's very, very, very difficult, which is strange because obviously you think that a sponsor would want to travel through that journey with you. But of course, when you've won an Olympic medal, you create an opportunity for sponsors to sort of jump on the back of your success. And I'm very lucky that a few people did that. It's not easy as a shooter because, of course, you're using a gun, and in certain countries, and especially in England, it can be perceived as a dangerous weapon, which of course it is, but in the right hands, it's an amazing tool for good. And I was just very, very lucky to be able to put it to good use in London. So how do I find sponsors? That's not necessarily an easy question to answer. I think different people are presented with different opportunities. But prior to an Olympic medal, it's difficult, very, very difficult. And I think the only way to change that is to increase the sports media approach, to promote Doubletrap and of course the other Olympic disciplines in the most positive way possible, and ultimately to get it on TV, to expand the audience. For people to sit down at home, click onto a channel on any number of the nebba of channels out there and stumble across shooting is going to be a good thing, and that's something that I'm really, really keen to pursue.
Fantastic. Can you win with luck?
No.
Can you win an Olympic medal with luck?
Absolutely not.
No.
Impossible.
Takes hard work, yeah.
No one I have ever seen ever compete at the highest level, and that is the Olympics, has ever won a medal with luck. I can't think of anyone. It is the pinnacle. It is impossible. It is an onslaught. You are competing against the best of the best of the best, and if you're fortunate enough to win a medal, then you have worked extremely hard together.
Good. What makes you a winner?
What makes you a winner? I think to a certain extent, a lot of the people that go to the Olympics are winners because otherwise they wouldn't be there in the first place. They've all had to win medals, gold medals on the world stage, and then build up to it. I think possibly what put me aside from everyone else on that day was my mental strength. Having not crumbled under the pressure, that last pair I missed, that could have changed everything, and it didn't. As I said, we talked about that a little bit earlier. I fell on training, I could have so easily missed more targets at that point, and I didn't because I have trained so hard for that moment. I've shot a lot of targets, I've shot a lot of repeat doubles, a lot of wide scheme, C scheme, and I never knew quite why. So yes, what made me a winner is very, very difficult to answer in one sentence or one answer, but I certainly think that training, and I know I'm repeating myself again and again and again, but training makes a huge difference.
Good. Is there anything we can make shooting sports more interesting for spectators or media?
So here we go. I think that Doubletrap in itself is a really exciting discipline because you've got two targets in the air. If someone wants to miss two like I did, it makes it exciting because of course the scores drop and raise very, very quickly. Whereas in the other Olympic disciplines, you're only shooting one on report, sorry, not on report necessarily, but on what I mean by that is you have one, then a double in skeet, and then of course you have single targets in trap. So in skeet, yes, you can see changes very, very quickly, but how often do you see a double missed in skeet? It's so rare. So I think Doubletrap is very televisual, and I think someone needs to really take the bull by the horns and grasp the opportunity, and if nothing else, drag Doubletrap and the other Olympic disciplines in time to television, and oddly allow people to make some noise. The beautiful thing about the Olympics is people are watching who have never seen shooting before. They're clapping, cheering, booing, jeering, shouting, farting. It doesn't matter. You're there to experience a day out with your friends and your family, and you're supporting your team. That may be Sweden, that may be Russia, that may be Great Britain. The point is you're just thrilled to be there and thrilled to be a part of it. And I think that's really missing at the moment on the world stage. I think we should be allowed to make as much noise as we want. I think that there should be an effort to force it onto TV. We need to engage more with individual athletes as much as disciplines, and then really engage with likes of live music and I'm probably going to sound sexist here, but dancing girls, etc. Because it attracts, you're creating a spectacle around the sport rather than just trying to make a spectacle of the sport. And in reality, we're shooting a clay disc. It's the size of a side plate, flying through the air, and it's landing 55 meters from the trench, and we're trying to shoot it really, really quick. And most of us shoot the first one with our left eye and the second one with our right eye. And the minute you tell people that, they go, "Wow, that's incredible," but no one knows. So it's about having a TV presence with someone who knows what the hell they're talking about, explaining the ins and outs of these disciplines that are extremely difficult, and then building a real spectacle around the discipline itself. As I said, maybe dancing girls is the wrong way, but music, clicker-clackers, noise, shouting, booing should be allowed, is what I think.
Okay, last thing, is there anything you can say to the viewers, young athletes, to attract them to start shooting? Just look in the camera and just tell them, what do you think what they should do?
So I think if you've never shot before and you're thinking about taking up an Olympic discipline, pick one of the three that suits you, that you enjoy more than anything in the world, and then work really, really hard. You don't get to win an Olympic medal without working really, really hard. You don't necessarily need to be the most talented, nor the least talented. But if you're prepared to get up every day and train and work, whether that's in the gym, or of course at a bar to raise enough money to train, it's about getting the best out of yourself and being the best you possibly can be. And who knows where that may take you. It's in every one of us. Something is in every one of us.
Great. Congrats to all of your medals, and thank you for letting me and the viewers to know a little bit more about you and your shooting career.
Thanks, Håkan.
And thank you so much, Peter.
Thank you very much indeed.